Welcome, everybody, to the A Little Less Fear podcast. I'm your producer and host of the show, Dr. Lino Martinez. This is your motivational podcast of people's incredible journeys. Oh, yeah, let's do this. Welcome back, everybody, to the A Little Less Fear podcast. Today, I would love to welcome Emma G, author, two-time TEDx speaker, singer, songwriter, and coach. Emma G uses the magic of music to empower, uplift, and motivate audiences worldwide. Born with a rare neurological condition called hydrocephalus, Emma G has recovered from multiple traumas, including 10 brain surgeries. By writing and singing her truth, sharing her experiences and turning her lessons into blessings. I love this. Emma G's music and story are helping audiences overcome struggles, trauma, stress, to step up and into their own authentic power. In her book, My Life, My Songs, My Healing, Emma G shares her own personal story of how she has turned trauma into tunes and struggles into songs to give her music an inspirational and authentic message. Welcome, G, to the Dr. Lino Show, A Little Less Fear podcast.
Thank you so much. And it's funny, I know that that's my biography, but every time I hear people say that, like repeat it back to me, I'm always like, man, this person sounds really cool. It doesn't feel like me.
It doesn't feel like
But,
you. It feels like you feel like it's in the third person.
it really, well, it kind of does. I feel like in the last, 5 years in particular, it's almost like I haven't been chasing my chasing my dreams. I've been catching blessings, and I'm very privileged and honored to be able to do that, especially considering the background that that I've come from. It's a blessing. So thank you for having me
You
here.
haven't been chasing. Oh, absolutely. It's a pleasure and it's an honor. So you haven't been chasing dreams. You've been, come again, say that again, chasing
I haven't
blessings.
been chasing dreams. I've been catching blessings.
Catching blessings. I love this. Well, you know what? It's definitely a blessing to meet you, and I feel blessed right now at this present moment with you. You know what I love? I was on your website and I saw the magic of fear is learning to rise again. Is that one of your songs?
It is. It's one of the lyrics from my song Together We Rise, which is all about embracing diversity and adversity and recognizing that together we all, when we support one another, a rising tide really does lift all boats. I'm really aware of how toxic the competition mindset can be. I feel as if co-opetition is a much more healthy and realistic and I don't know, like effective mindset that we can really, embrace when it comes to success, especially in the post-pandemic world. I feel, that I remember going into 2021 and everyone's like, oh, nothing's ever going to be the same. And I'm sitting there going, good. Like,
Exactly.
I'm really tired of this idea that we need to be better than our neighbors. I feel like it's really important for us to recognize the power and the magic of each person that's in our community so that we can, embrace those scary parts and rise together.
Embrace the scary parts and rise together. What were your scary parts?
Oh, well, I originally come from New Zealand, and I think every culture has some component of this. I know in Baltimore and DC, and there's this mindset. I don't know if this is like a typical Black American concept or if this is just a Baltimore DMV type thing, but the concept of crabs in a bucket. In New Zealand, we call it tall poppy syndrome, and the whole idea is around how we tend to, when somebody rises a little too high for our comfort, we kind of grab them back down again and try to bring everybody to our same level. And I think because of that, I really struggled a lot with being okay with being different and allowing myself to kind of be unapologetically weird, and know that my gifts are my gifts, other people's gifts are their gifts. We should honor and respect those.
Yes.
But I think that that's been the biggest aha kind of thing as I've embraced the scary parts, especially, and I'm not just talking about the gifts of music or the gifts of storytelling, but the gifts of being able to take, the really crappy moments in our lives, like brain surgeries,
Yes.
and figuring out ways to navigate those to create, to step into our superpowers.
I love how you said this. You said my gifts are other people's gifts.
Well, and other people's gifts are my gifts.
Yes. Yes,
You
absolutely.
know,
Yeah.
I think that we forget that we get so caught up in our own egos that we forget about our own magic.
Tell me more about your magic. And so I understand that you went through some incredible brain surgeries when you were very young, correct?
Yes,
Up
yes.
to 24 surgeries by the time you were 10 years old,
12 years old. Yep,
12 years old. And at some point you were losing your memory, correct?
significantly.
How
To the
did you
point
regain that?
where,
Yes, go ahead. How,
well,
to the point where what?
sorry, to the point where, you know, I think a lot of our memories revolve around bonding with our peers, with movies and with music and you know, with TV shows, etc., especially when you're a young person.
Mhm.
But my memory was affected so much that I struggled to get through a 30-minute TV show. I wouldn't be able to remember, what had happened 5, 10 minutes beforehand. So I struggled to put the kind of puzzle pieces together when it came to any kind of media. Um, so that made things difficult. And in addition to that, I struggled with my directional memory. I, up until the age of 9, had the nickname of the human dictionary when I was in school. I loved education. I loved the fact that we have these brains that can, retain and information, and our mind is our biggest weapon. And I've always known that, but at the age of 9, I lost so much of my brain function that I fell back significantly in high school, in elementary school, then middle school, then high school. But the thing that I found kind of accidentally, I'm not going to lie, was how beneficial music is to retaining information, restoring memories, and allowing me to record my knowledge in a way that I could take ownership of. So, for example, we all sang the alphabet, right?
Yeah.
That's a typical example. I mean, I'm sure even still to this day, you still sometimes go back to singing the alphabet in order to figure out,
I
what
go
comes
back to
after K.
singing the Sesame Street. No, no,
Right,
that's number. That's the counting. The 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. I love that song. I
right.
love it. Yeah.
And so we use music all the time when it comes to raising our children. But when it comes to, 9, 10, 11, 12 years old,
Right.
we kind of think, oh, you're too grown up for that. But when you have a brain, you know, trauma, it's actually really important to to get back in touch with those parts of ourselves. So not only was I creating little songs for, it sounds really bad, but creating songs to remember how to spell words or how to remember mathematical functions and equations. But when it came to even remembering key parts of my experiences, I turned to songwriting.
Love it.
When you write a song with lyrics and melody that really explain and express, this is what happened when I was X amount, X age of years, and this is how I felt, and this is what you did, and this is what I did, and this was my interpretation of it. Even now, I just turned 35, and even now I can go back to songs I wrote when I was 11 years old and remember exactly who I was talking about and how I was feeling. And it's incredible to be able to have an almost catalog of my story in almost 1,000 songs I've written up to this point. Just really cataloging my life.
That's beautiful. Hey, Emma, is music what brought your memory back?
So that is, I think yes. I think yes in many ways. And I'm saying that that's a bit of I recognize that can be a little bit of a controversial statement, but I stand by it.
Yeah,
Because, brain trauma affects everybody's brains differently, as we all know,
sure.
because we are still learning so much about the brain. But the way that I have found, and I worked alongside a number of psychiatrists and brain specialists, especially at the Child, Youth and Family Services
Mhm.
back in New Zealand, they found that for me, yes, music helped me
Sure.
to re-stimulate my brain. And I actually talked a little bit about this in my TEDx talk last year, where I found that, there have been multiple studies, not many, because we're still learning a lot about music therapy and
Yeah,
about songwriting therapy in particular. But when we combine music and songwriting together, it stimulates both parts of our brain, which stimulates the corpus callosum at the bottom of our skull, which helps to regenerate cognition and brain cell regeneration.
oh, I'm sure that it's reaching all parts of your brain, your prefrontal cortex, all the stimulation of your emotions, and it's bringing everything to life. Neuroplasticity is a real thing. Everything is interconnected and everything is reconnecting. And you're finding new
Mhm.
neural pathways towards a newer version of yourself, which is what you did, which is
Exactly.
incredible and it's beautiful.
Thank you. Yeah, no, it's pretty cool. And it sounds kind of like, hocus pocus, but
Not at all. Not to me, it doesn't.
thank you, thank you. And we are living, breathing proof, aren't we? So there.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, definitely. I love this. Hey, so something else I wanted to touch here on is you help teenagers through music, singing and songwriting. How do you do this?
Mhm.
How does this
With
work?
a lot of love and a lot of patience.
Yeah, I can imagine. I can imagine.
No, it's I mean, so I established Yes Youth Coaching, which is youth empowerment through songwriting coaching back when back in 2019, before the pandemic hit. Um, and it kind of evolved organically. I've been a vocal teacher since I was 17, so over half my life now. And one of my vocal clients turned around and said, "Hey, Emma, I want to do what you do. I want to write my own music." And I was like, "All right." So he was 14 at the time. We, joined forces and we ended up writing his first single. And it was incredibly powerful for me because, I think for young men in particular, it's really hard for them to express themselves verbally.
Sure.
We condition our young boys so much so, through elementary, middle school, and high school to kind of be strong and silent and deal with it. We need to be brave and whatever, which I think can shut down a lot of men's abilities to express themselves.
Absolutely.
But music and songwriting is, I think, really like a creative and almost like fun and safe security blanket for self-expression.
Absolutely.
So to give young boys in particular the permission to be their own version of Drake,
Yeah.
I think can be really powerful. And then, of course, with our young women, there's a lot of contrast in contrast to our young men. Young women, I found, have been more verbal about how they feel, but therefore they're more susceptible to being like overly um, confused and overwhelmed by all of the feelings and all of the thoughts. So, songwriting and music together gives them an opportunity to really slow down their thinking, focus on one point at a time, and write an entire song about each difficulty, stress, or struggle that they are going through, so that then by the end of however long we work together, we have a song about anxiety or about their boyfriends or girlfriends or about their parents, so it's like really giving them permission to sit in the yuck,
Mhm.
slow down their thinking, identify, process, understand, and overcome ultimately their stress.
And also, as you're saying that, what I'm feeling is when you're able to help somebody hone in on a certain emotion or a certain feeling or a certain situation in their life, such as you mentioned right now, a breakup or even a parent's divorce or whatnot. And at that, especially teenagers, I mean, especially just being a human in general, we can stress out about a bunch of things coming at us all at once. And it's like, how do you reorganize your thoughts? But if you start with one thing at a time and you give one thing more attention, all the other stuff starts getting silent. And when you heal one part and work on that specific trauma, everything else starts to heal on its own too, because you haven't given momentum to all the other stuff. So I can definitely see and feel how all this is healing and just incredibly beautiful as well.
It is. It is. And I think, to add to that, uh, as you were talking, you reminded me of a saying that I think came from Wayne Dwyer, if I'm not mistaken, which is along the lines of when you focus on the positive, it's not that the negative, you know, is forgotten or discarded. It's just that it pales so much in comparison to the positive thoughts that, you can then start to rewire and cognitively reframe, sorry, um, those disempowering thoughts and ideas in a way that gives you ownership and autonomy of your life. And that's one of the things I'm really big on when it comes to working with our young people, because I think no shade to Taylor Swift or to Drake, but it's so easy for us to dwell in the negative and just stay there.
Oh, yeah.
When, with the right coaching, and I often tell my clients all the time that because I'm not a licensed counselor, for example,
Sure.
what I do is it works very well in conjunction with therapy. But when you give yourself permission to sit in your feelings or sit in your yuck.
Hmm.
Um, I try to encourage them to kind of take a step outside of their ego, take a step outside of their feelings, take a step outside of their cognitive narrative and look at it from other perspectives. For example, if you're struggling with embarrassment, why not, instead of focusing on the embarrassing moment, look at embarrassment as a human being? If
Yeah.
you were sitting across the table from Mr. or Mrs. Embarrassment, what would you
Yeah.
tell them?
Sure.
What would you say to reclaim your sense of ownership over your emotional state? And that just that quick shift. It's a weird, subtle thought, but it gives a lot of the young people that I work with like, oh snap. If I was to talk to Mr. Embarrassment, I would say this,
Yeah.
and then I would say that, and oh, you can't have me,
I
and
love that.
so,
Yeah.
and so suddenly they're able to like kind of have fun with this embarrassing moment that happened in their life, and they can figure out, oh, okay, this is how I can now approach every other embarrassing moment that I
Sure.
might come across in the future.
Even the most beautiful thing though about that is that you're bringing rhythm into that embarrassment and you're bringing music. So in actuality, what you're doing is you're helping them change their vibration. So you're taking a negative vibration and adding beautiful frequency to it to completely transform and transmute that vibration to something more uplifting within every cell of their body. And that has a transmutable experience as a whole, collectively, not just within them, but it vibrates and it has a domino effect after that. That's incredible. I love it.
1000%. I often tell people, being a musician, being a songwriter, I'm either an alchemist or
Yes,
I'm here to sell love, or an anthropologist. There we go.
all of
So,
the above.
it's all about, yeah, exactly that. Turning the negatives into positives.
And when you talk about stepping into your power, what is your definition of power? What is power? Power to you.
Power to me is the ability to recognize, understand, and live in your ability to know yourself.
I love
And
this.
and to love yourself, to your point, um, and to acknowledge that when you know yourself, when you love yourself, that everything else falls into line.
Everything else falls into line when you learn to love yourself. And that's your personal power.
Yeah. I think if
When
everybody knew, if everybody took the time to know themselves, and that means the ugly and the beautiful, um, I think we would eradicate a lot of the issues that we're facing in society. We have far more in common with one another than we sometimes even like to understand about ourselves. I'll give you an example. For those of you, who are watching or listening to this podcast who can't see my face right now, I am a person of color. My father was from Fiji. My mother's white American. Her father was from Iran. Her mother is Norwegian. I tell people that I'm overcoming racism in one body. But living in America, people automatically typecast me as either Black, Hispanic, or Ethiopian because we have a very high population of Ethiopians here in the DMV, um, which is fine and beautiful, and that it's an opening for conversation. But as we all know, America also has a rather colorful history, excuse the pun, around people of color and
Sure,
how we treat one another.
sure.
And a few years ago, I was friends with somebody who was very closely related to um, our light and brighter friends who did not necessarily feel there is a good space in this country for people of my skin tone and darker. And this friend of mine was super nervous about introducing me to them.
Mhm.
But I'm all about stepping into the uncomfortable and turning that into a blessing. So my whole thing was, okay, cool. How can I bring some enlightenment
Right,
to our conversations to help them to recognize that we have far more in common than we have different. And I
right.
tell you, we had the best afternoon of our lives. The conversations, the connections. By the end of it, they were inviting me back to their house to go hunting. I don't hunt, but like it was wild. But like that's the thing. It goes back to the Together We Rise mindset. When we can recognize that we have far more in common with one another than we have different, that in and of itself can do wonders for how we can save the world.
And you want to save the world one song at a time, correct?
This is true.
And what you're
Not
doing.
egotistical at all, I promise.
I don't feel that at all. I think it's actually quite humbling. Something that you mentioned right now that was really quite beautiful. You're talking about going back on the subject of your own personal power, which is recognizing, understanding, and living in your ability to know and love yourself. And you mentioned combining the ugly and the beautiful. But when you said that, I actually quickly felt that when you start to recognize that inner part of yourself, the ugly becomes beautiful. And so that word ugly no longer has a negative connotation. Ugly becomes beautiful. And at that point, you become super duper connected with yourself and others. And when that happens, you don't see ugly in anybody anymore. Everybody's beautiful.
That part. I don't know if you can relate to this, but a lot of my scars are on my head from the brain surgeries. But hydrocephalus. I have a VP shunt that goes down in my peritoneal cavity on my tummy, so I have scars all over my abdomen. But as a as a woman, I often wear bikinis during the summertime. And I remember a couple of years ago being asked if those scars were the aftermath of plastic surgery or liposuction. And furthermore, I was told that those scars were ugly. And I've always kind of laughed at that because, to your point, I think ugly is such a bizarre term that we so easily ascribe to things that we don't understand.
Exactly.
And you know
Yeah.
what I mean? And my husband, I'm newly married, but my husband is
Congratulations.
a Krav Maga instructor. And he often talks about our scars being badges of survival. And I'm like,
Yeah,
hell to the freak, yes.
they really
Like,
are.
you see the ugly, I see warrior. You see,
Definitely.
unworthy, I see I've survived. You
Yeah.
know, every scar that I have on my body is an indication that I've been there, done that, got the t-shirt and the war wound, and I, bring it on to the next
Oh,
to the next
absolutely.
adverse experience.
Oh, I can definitely relate. I mean, I've got so many scars myself. I had also two different feeding tubes. So if I go to the beach, I've got these holes that were because I have feeding tube for 8 years. So the hole doesn't really close, and I've had people ask me, did you get shot? Like, yeah, I got shot. Those were, yeah, you know me, I got shot. I was on a drive-by, like no. But it's really quite fascinating. We could, especially if you can have a kind heart and just kind of joke about it, but it's just part of you, and they're just cells that healed a different way, and that's pretty much it. But
Amen.
yeah, I love my scars. My scars love me. So why wouldn't I love my scars? If my scars could talk, they're not gonna tell me they hate me. They're gonna say I love you.
Hmm. I saved your life.
What's that?
They saved your life.
Yeah, they sure did. And it's really
Yeah.
incredible how resilient our bodies are, especially when
Right.
you start raising your own vibration and learning that authenticity in your inner power. Your body starts to show you just how strong and powerful your body is. And the more you believe
Hmm.
it, the more you trust it, and the more it shows you.
Hmm. Absolutely. Absolutely. I love that.
I really love that you were able to transmute your pain into power. When did you realize that this is what you were doing? You were transforming pain into power.
Ooh, that I'm almost embarrassed to admit this because it's been a slow process. I think, just like we're always growing and evolving, that understanding of turning pain into power has
Mhm.
been an evolving journey for me, and I'm still
Yeah.
evolving in it. The first time I can tell you that I started to realize the power that music and songwriting has in my life when it comes to turning my pain into power was back in New Zealand, where I'm from, when I was in a hard rock band called Static Era. And we were a four-piece rock band. I wrote all the songs, but a few months into establishing the band, my then guitarist Chris Young um, sort of pulled me aside a little bit and told me he would like to write a song with me.
Mhm.
And I think, he's older than I am by a few years. And one of the key things that he wanted to kind of emphasize was up to that point, a lot of the songs I was writing were very focused on the here and now and how I was feeling.
Yes.
For him, he wanted to sort of challenge me a little bit. And I love a good challenge, I'm not going to lie. But he wanted to challenge me to kind of take a step outside of that pain and think, okay, if you were a UFC fighter and you were going into the ring, what song would you want to hear
I
play
love
on,
that.
on the surround sound? Because it's all well and good to be the underdog and to
Right.
sit in your underdogness, but you came to win. You came to fight, kick
Oh
ass and,
yeah.
and take, to kick ass and take names.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, and we actually ended up writing a song called Fire Away. And I think that was when I started to really click like, oh, snap, this is an opportunity for me to take the ish, turn it into fertilizer, and use that fertilizer to plant a garden.
Yes.
And that's, I don't know, something went off in my brain. And so every single song I ended up writing with Static Era after that point was very much about embracing my inner warrior, embracing that UFC fighter
Yeah.
emotionally, um, and figuring out how I could turn my disempowering thoughts into empowering ones. Now, again, I don't want to brush off like it's very important to also recognize and sit in
Mhm.
the yuck because the more if we kind of don't allow ourselves that permission, um, it's very easy for us to bury it, and the
Definitely.
more we bury stuff the more likely we are to explode, and that
Yeah.
can manifest in some very dangerous ways. But once you've given yourself permission to sit in it for a while, I think it's important that we, recognize, okay, it's now had some time to decompose
Yeah,
and turn it into that ish so that we can start to grow stronger.
that's incredible. Well, I really do wish we could keep talking, but I am aware that you're going to be going live in about 20 minutes. You're going to be performing. How many songs are you going to be performing tonight?
Ooh, 3 hours worth of material
3
tonight.
hours.
Yeah, yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
Wow.
I've been blessed, man. Like, I moved to DC back in November 2015, and I've been a full-time musician for, the past, 8 years. And most of my gigs are around three hours. But, I started off as a street performer full time. And so I was singing every
Wow.
morning between 3 to 3.5, 4 hours at a time. My entire mission then, saving the world one song at a time, was just to make people smile on the way to work, you know.
Well, you're
So
making me
now I
smile
get
and you're
to,
not even singing. So
yeah,
I mean,
well,
I see it.
you're in Los Angeles, correct?
I'm in Los Angeles. Yeah.
Well, I will be in LA in January, so I can maybe make you smile in person
Please
then.
let me know. My birthday's in January. That'd be incredible. Let me know when
Okay,
you're
well,
out
I'm
here.
performing. I'm performing at NAMM in Anaheim, so it's
Perfect.
I'm really really excited about it.
Just let me know, everybody. Emma G, and we're here live on Instagram. So, Emma G, how can our viewers or watchers and our listeners find you? What is your Instagram handle?
Of course, I'm Emma G Music on Instagram
Emma G
and
Music.
TikTok and YouTube and emmagmusic.com. Otherwise, on Facebook, I'm Emma G Speaks, as well as, yeah, no, Twitter, I'm Emma G Music as well.
Excellent. Well, I look forward to keeping in touch with you and to watch you in front of me live. And I'm really looking forward to that in Anaheim in January. Have an incredible performance tonight. I'm sure all of your blessings they're already with you. Thank you for stepping into your power. Your power is a gift to the world and a gift that you're also giving to yourself. And that's very admirable. Thank you so much for respecting yourself and for giving yourself the love that you've given yourself. That demonstrates the love that we all have within each and every one of us. And yeah, this will be live in about 2 weeks, and I will reach out to you and give your publicist, correct? Rebecca is the one that I was connected to, and give her the two shareable links, the audio and the YouTube link. So thank you so much. Good luck tonight. Keep spreading your love and your joy and keep raising the roof.
Thank you so much. And thank you for seeing my magic, recognizing your magic, and joining forces because, together we do rise.
We do. Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much, Emma G.
Peace.
Thank you all so much for tuning in to the Dr. Lino Show, A Little Less Fear podcast. If you'd like to get a hold of me, you can do so by sending me an email at a little less fear at gmail.com or through an inquiry from my website at www.alittlelessfear.com, where you will always find information on where to get my book. You can get my book on Amazon and Amazon paperback version, Kindle or Kindle Unlimited. And I also create incredible visual video poetry for people that are interested in marketing or even just to send a personal note to anybody or somebody that you might love. So yeah, check it out. I love it. Poetry is my passion, one of my other passions, aside from doing what I do right now, which is giving you all the motivation that you need to keep growing, to keep motivating people, motivating yourself, and to keep expanding. I love you all so much. Have a blessed day and take care. Rock on.